The McBroom sisters present In Conversation with the fabulous Nina Turner, congressional candidate.
Yeah, what is happening at the hands of law enforcement must be dealt with because they took an oath, and what they do in our name needs to be checked, no doubt. But I'm gonna tell you something: people are dying slowly every single day. They don't have adequate food. They don't have adequate health care. They don't have clean water. They don't have safe work conditions. They got to leave their babies at home while they working 2 and 3 jobs in danger. See, that's a
Yes.
slow death that's happening right there.
Yes.
Racial injustice, economic injustice, environmental injustice, you name it, is still a reality for Black people in this country, and by extension, other people of color, and then poor white folks too. Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the Black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in Black-owned businesses, the Black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.
Senator Nina Turner has been a tireless advocate for the working class and has become the darling of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. We wish her all the best in her run for Congress. Today, we join she and Selwyn Jones, the uncle of the late George Floyd, to discuss how to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act and what we can do to help get that done. We should go ahead since we know that Nina's time is valuable. You have no idea. I'm like a super fan meeting a rock star.
Me too.
To talk to you.
Fangirling like crazy. I met you at a Bernie Sanders rally in Los Angeles, gave you a big old hug, and I like show everybody the picture. I'm like, see, I met her. See.
And I went to see you at the Riverside Church. I think it was back in 2016.
Yeah.
And I tried to get over to meet you, and the lady that was, kind of your handler was like, "Oh, she's got to leave. We gotta go," because so many people were talking. But anyhow, how are you?
Both, and thanks for walking me down memory lane, and thank you for the great work that you all are doing in the social justice, racial justice space.
We had the opportunity to meet Selwyn. He's George Floyd's uncle, and he saw a music video that I had made for us from our recent album of a song called Wish You Were Here. It's a Pink Floyd classic, but I put a Black Lives Matter theme on it. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but
I will definitely watch it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make sure you get it.
Okay.
He said he was moved to tears by the sentiment of it, and he wanted to meet us. So we had a great conversation with him, and he spoke to us about not only the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, which he's very much focused on getting passed. We spoke about life in North Carolina, where he was from, and I was just shocked. I mean, Durga and I grew up in LA. I live in New York. She lives in Italy and in LA. So even though we've been to the South, this idea that grown men are still called boy today,
2021,
that
just blew my mind.
Yes, absolutely. Unacceptable.
The first and most important thing that we wanted to speak to you about, being that you've been a member of the Senate, you understand the political climate that we're in right now, which is just insane. I mean, there's issues about being bipartisan, and then there's this craziness that we're dealing with now of obstruction. And we know that the House passed the bill.
But what can we do? What part can we do? And what can Democrats do to bargain with these people to get this passed?
I mean, at a certain point, you just gotta make a decision that some people are just not going to do the right thing. I mean, I believe that bipartisanship in the true sense of intent is really a good concept. But when it comes down to it, you got to have two sides who are willing to negotiate to be able to do something in a bipartisan way. As you both mentioned earlier, I certainly served in the Ohio Senate, and I know what it's like to be in a body where the dominant party is not your party. But see, the difference between the Ohio Senate and the Ohio legislature as a whole, and what we're talking about right now, the U.S. Congress, both chambers of that Congress is controlled by Democrats.
Right.
Shout out to the House of Representatives for passing the George Floyd Policing Act. It is over in the Senate now, where Democrats have the majority. So
Yeah.
you try to come and reason with your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, but if they are refusing to reason on something of this magnitude, the Democrats just have to go it alone. Fight for justice alone and make no excuses about it. The thing about, but also what's happening right here, as we all know, is the filibuster.
Yes.
Yes.
And how it's being used to stop, to prevent people from being able to have a full-fledged debate and vote up or down on
Yes.
bills of importance. So we must do away with the filibuster.
Absolutely. I mean, just the fact that we're dealing with this nonsense that the big lie is still being perpetuated is mind-boggling. And we do our part to try to educate people about what the facts are, but it's I mean, this is like cult mentality. It's frightening.
It is, and we need people. I know the heaviness of the COVID, and we're still trying to tame it. You know, people were catching hell before COVID, and to quote my grandmother, they show enough was catching hell during COVID. You know,
Oh boy.
my grandma from the South, you know, show enough.
Oh boy.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I just jumped in. Miss Turner, what did you just say? Show enough?
Show enough.
That's some good stuff there.
That's good Southern talk. It illustrates the deepness of what we're talking about, so people can't walk around thinking that all was well before the pandemic, because it was not well. The numbers of people who don't have health care, Black people weren't worrying about whether or not, you know, justice is going to be served for them, as what happened to George Floyd galvanized not just this nation, but the world. It's awakening. You know, so you two are talking about, you know, activating people. How do we activate people? This is an awakening by which we must never go back to sleep. The sleeping giants are awake, and we must organize. You know, one of my dear friends, Michael Render, aka Killer Mike, has a saying, and he says, organize, strategize, mobilize. You know, and that plot plan, I forgot that plot plan, mobilize, organize, strategize. All of those things have to happen simultaneously. And guess what? It never stops. And that's the thing that we got to get our people. And when I say our people, I mean Black people and also conscious minded people to understand that justice is not a destination. It is a journey. And the George Floyd Act must pass the United States Congress, and the Senate needs to do its job, and we need to check the Democrats over there in the Senate who are holding up even before we deal with the Republicans.
Right. So I would like to ask you, all day, every day, I am on Facebook, typing away, talking to people who are like, why are you spreading hate? Why are you making this ugly? You know, why are you trying to divide people? And I try to explain that you cannot have a conversation about something until you identify what you are talking about. And I'm sure you run into this a lot. How do you handle this?
All the time. I mean, you just laid it out. There's nothing special about that. You have to have the courage to tell the truth about the situation before you can deal with the situation. And unfortunately, far too many people in this country are into revisionist history.
Hello.
You know, they're trying to take critical race theory out of schools. They want to diminish, hide the facts about the history of this country. Now, you might not like it, but the facts are the facts. The Native Americans' land was stolen.
Yeah.
Our ancestors were enslaved.
Yeah.
The impact of that enslavement still haunts and plagues us to this day, even through our material conditions.
Yes.
Racial injustice, economic injustice, environmental injustice, you name it, is still a reality for Black people in this country, and by extension, other people of color, and then poor white folks too. So in order for us to solve any problem, first we got to admit that we have a problem. You know, confession is good for the soul. And so we need the people of this country to understand that. So since anybody that's saying to you being divisive by telling the truth, then something is wrong with them, not you.
I'm saying, I tell people it's like the man who batters his wife. When you're saying, do you see that black eye on her? And they're saying, well, you're just trying to make people hate me. No, you beat her and broke her eye socket. You did
Broke
that.
her eye.
Okay. So until you admit that you beat her, we cannot get you the help that you need for whatever rage issues you have. And certainly we cannot get her the medical help that she needs if she's like taught to hide it and act like, oh, it was my fault and all that, you know. So
Yeah.
Miss
Well,
Turner,
Go ahead, so
Miss Turner,
Yes.
I am George Floyd's Uncle Selwyn.
please.
I appreciate you giving us an opportunity to communicate with you, dear. I really, truly do. This is good for the soul because you talk about white folks. I did come from where your grandmama come from, probably. So I use words like "to be sure" and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm still living in a hell of a situation. I live in a little town of 1,200 white folks. I'm in South Dakota, Gettysburg, South Dakota. And the day we buried my nephew, I was the worst nigga that's ever pooped between two shoes. I can't even go to the two stores in town. I can't even have logical conversations. I don't even try to have conversations with people. I don't even go to any of the ball games anymore because white folks blame me. I went to a little track meet the other day and they were standing here, and because I'm that kind of dude, I went and stood right in the middle of them. They separated like the Red Sea. It was funnier than heck to see white people move that fast. And honestly, man, I don't really give a damn because I grew up with white folks being white folks, and nothing I see now is any different than how I grew up. All I know is my job is now is to put my foot down, and those people that want to listen to me, that want to hear my voice, that want to make a change, those are the ones I want to communicate with. Because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I don't even care about the horses that don't want no water. Simple, you know. You cannot change an old dog. And what I mean by that is when you're talking about these particular type of rural country ass white folk, their daddy sat them down and said, listen, black people are inferior to you. If somebody don't have a big enough tractor, they are inferior to you. If their house is bigger and smaller than ours, they're inferior to you. So there's plenty of races. There's plenty of things that people judge racism by. So yeah, dear, I just personally really don't care. I just know that my nephew died for a reason. And the moment of my nephew's death, he gave us a bigger chance that we've ever had to make change in this world, I think. So, you know, we're going to ride this thing out. You know, we have to, because without people like yourself, we're stuck in the mud. So keep handling your business, sister. Please keep handling your sister. And anytime you need for me to come by and communicate, and I'm here.
We support your campaign 1,000%.
yeah, I'm a regular donator. The thing that I would have to say related to what you're saying, Selwyn, and to what you said, Durga, as well, because I'm also pretty vocal on social media. The people, like I was in England when George Floyd was killed, and I was watching all over Europe on the news, people marching, protesting. I was like, whoa, they're really getting it. When I saw them throw Leopold's statue in the river in Belgium, I was like, whoa, this is deep. Because people were relating to what happened to George as a human being. But with the way the media has continued to over and over and over demonize the victim, he was a drug addict, he was a criminal, he was a bank robber, he had burglarized somebody, he had beat his wife. Any excuse they can come up with to try to make it the victim is the problem. And therefore, since they're Black, of course they got roughed up because they were disrespectful to the cop. They had a history of this and that, blah, blah, blah. that to me is the thing that we've got to dismantle, is this ridiculous perception that people who are unarmed, already detained, half the time they've already been handcuffed like George was, and yet they're somehow a threat. Why?
Because the color of their skin.
Yeah.
George Floyd Act is certainly a beginning. It's not the ending in terms
It's
of
right.
seated
There's
work
a-
that needs to be done in this country, but it's a start, and we need
It's
the
a start.
Congress to pass that start. I mean, the full Congress
Yes.
to pass that. So in terms of activism, just the fact that you all continue to tell the story, the fact that you continue to tell your nephew's story and you fight for this type of justice, there are millions of people across the, you know, when we add people up in this country, across the world, who absolutely believe in what you all are doing and how you're pushing. What we need ordinary people to put a little extra on their ordinary so that extraordinary things can happen. In other words, everybody has a role to play in pushing for justice. And so we're asking people to call their senators, call their US senators, send them an email, text message if you have their number, a regular snail mail letter, which is rare. People pay attention to those because it's so rare to get a letter in the mail. Be out there, join organizations and groups that are pushing to have the George Floyd Policing Act passed in the United States Congress. It is stalled right now in the Senate. And if you believe in justice, you know, Ella Baker, the great, once said, "We who believe in freedom cannot rest." And this is really overall what this conversation is about, is that we who believe in freedom, we who believe in
Yep.
justice, we who believe in equality, we who believe in equity, we who believe in humanity cannot rest. I'm just adding to what Miss Ella Baker had to say. So we need everybody to join the Black community in lifting up the George Floyd Policing Act, which will have a ripple effect for all people. Because what we're saying, we don't want anybody treated unfairly.
Right. And then I
Yeah.
know the other issue that you've made a really an important focal point is voting. The
Yes.
importance of voting, because that's the only way to get the laws changed. And if the legislators are afraid you're not going to vote them in, they're going to do what you want.
They'll act right. But unfortunately, we have at the hands of Republicans in state legislatures all across this country, there are about 360 bills pending in state legislatures across the country to hold access to the ballot box. That is a problem, not just a problem for our community, it is a problem for democracy. And then we have Senator Joe Manchin in the United States Senate holding up the For the People Act and boldly and proudly saying he's going to hold it up because it's divisive. Wait a minute. Making sure that people have access to the ballot box is partisan and divisive? You know, he was just quoted as saying he's not even going to listen to some of the oldest civil rights organizations in this country. In other words, you all can't tell me what to do. Now that's a Democrat. Now we understand what we got to do, deal with these Republicans, no doubt, because they have.
How do you deal with that? What do we do? What can be done? How can this one man be stopping this legislation? It's infuriating.
And he's a Democrat.
What can be done about it?
I have to presume that the one thing that we can do, as she mentioned before, is write. Make our voices heard, even though we may not live in, he's in West Virginia?
He is. And there are groups of, I just had a tickle in my throat.
It's okay.
Oh,
There are West Virginians who are really standing up against him.
Good.
So we must stand side by side with our families and friends and sisters and brothers in West Virginia who are calling out his behavior. And somebody needs to run against him.
hello?
Yeah.
That's
Hello? There ain't no black people in West Virginia, Miss Turner.
They don't have
There
to be
ain't no
black.
black folks in West Virginia.
There's a few. But I mean, we need conscious minded. It doesn't have to be a black person that runs against him. We need a conscious minded. There was a person named Paula Jean, a dear friend of mine, Paula Jean, and she ran against him. Worked very, very hard. She's a coal miner's daughter. We need more people like Paula Jean to step up and say that this man is wrong and I'm taking the chance and running against him. She did that. And I'm proud of her. that she did at least challenge him. We need more people to stand up for justice and challenge people like Senator Joe Manchin.
Yes.
I don't understand why the Republicans are so against getting rid of qualified immunity.
Oh, really? You don't understand why?
I don't understand why anybody's against it.
Because supposedly their base is all about, back the blue and everything. Although we see how much they back
Power
the blue
control.
on January 6th. They didn't give a good goddamn about those poor policemen. But they look at this as an attack on the police. So, that's supposedly their base. So they're catering to their base.
I mean,
Wow.
bad policing, that's how we got to look at it. Nobody is law enforcement officers.
Slave patrol. Slave patrol.
Right. I mean, that is the origin of policing in the Black community. Definitely started with the slave patrols, no doubt about it. And what we see happening in policing, what happened to George, what happened to Sandra Bland, what happened to Breonna Taylor, what happened to, Tamir Rice, for example, in my home city, my home state, John Crawford III, down in the Dayton area, as he was shopping at a Walmart. He got shot and killed by police. White person called the police, and they came in there and they asked questions after the fact, and they shot him. He had a weapon in his hand, but it was a weapon
That's what white folks do.
that was being purchased at the store. It was being sold in the store. And they called the police on this young man, and he got shot and killed. I mean, multiply that all over the country. These kinds of behaviors and things are happening. So we fully need total reform. See, systemic problems require systemic solutions. And we need total reform of this system. But before we reform it, we got to have a recognition of the origins of this system and how Black lives are treated differently.
Yes,
that's why that officer was able to keep his knee on George's neck for over 9 minutes, and indifference in his eyes, because there's an indifference to Black people. And so again, Black people cannot be the only people fighting for racial justice, fighting against white supremacy, fighting against anti-Blackness, because I firmly believe that all of the isms, whether we're talking about anti-Semitism, xenophobia, homophobia, ageism, racism, you name it, all of those negative variables that are also a part of humankind all have their origins, for the most part, in this deep-seated white supremacy first, and then a level of anti-Blackness. And it must be dealt with not just in policing. What is happening at the hands of law enforcement must be dealt with, because they took an oath, and what they do in our name needs to be checked, no doubt. But I'm going to tell you something. People are dying slowly every single day. They don't have adequate food. They don't have adequate health care. They don't have clean water. They don't have safe work conditions. They got to leave their babies at home while they're working 2 and 3 jobs in danger. See, that's a slow death that's happening right there. So all I'm saying is that all of these systems must be dealt with in a very holistic way. And as much as we don't want to admit it, what we are seeing in policing, manifesting itself in policing, really is a reflection of us as a United States of America, as a society.
Absolutely. Hallelujah. Because I know you don't have much more time with us, but we wanted to discuss the whole subject of reparations with you.
I definitely support reparations. I do believe that the American descendants of slaves deserve to be paid, be compensated. And since our ancestors are not around, their descendants should be compensated. One quick and very easy example. When I say easy, but one quick, I shouldn't even say easy when I talk about this, so forgive me for that. But one very present example is the 100-year remembrance of Black Wall Street in Greenwood. Where you have 3 people who are still alive, who were children at the time. One person is 100 years old, one person is 106 years old, and the oldest is 107 years old, Mother Fletcher. They need to be made whole, and so do their descendants, and the descendants of everybody that was in and around that. Right now, that happened in Tulsa, in Greenwood, May 31st, 1921, 100 years.
Yeah,
So
we're
reparations all the way.
we're aware of the whole incident. I didn't learn about it until about 2 years ago.
Mm.
And I have a friend that lives in Oklahoma, lived there for many years, never heard about it until about a year ago.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
kept
I
it.
saw
Yeah, they kept it from the people who live in Oklahoma and Tulsa. They didn't teach that in schools. Going
right.
back to a point, I think Durga, you were making about them really hiding. They want to hide the history. We can't begin to heal and repair and have real truth and reconciliation unless we're willing to admit the truth. So, from direct payments, cash payments, to programs, the American descendants of slaves just definitely deserve reparations. And I actually wrote an op-ed with one of my dear friends, Erika Alexander. You guys may remember
Yes,
I,
played
I,
Max
oh
I'm
yeah.
aware of the op-ed too.
on The Living Single. I call her Alex. Alex the Great is what I call her. But yeah, anybody that wants to go back and read that, and there are many other experts on reparations. Dr. Sandy Darity and his wife, Miss Mullins, are experts on that. And you have other people who have been in the ADOS movement, really shouting from the rooftops that the
Yes.
American descendants of slaves deserve reparations, and I totally agree that we do.
And not even just slavery. I mean, Lorelei and I were almost not here because our father was part of the Tuskegee experiment, but he wound up not being an active member of
Oh, yes.
the experiment. He either wound up in the control group or he got shipped off. Yes. So if he had been an active member, we would not be here.
Wow.
You
Yeah.
guys were about at the end of our time, and I wanted to let Selwyn have a last word here before we have to say goodbye. Go ahead, Selwyn.
Miss Turner, we're gonna have to do this again because my two sisters, McBrooms, did not let their baby brother express himself, but that's okay. I've got 12 sisters, I got 2 more, so I got 14 mountain women in my family. So
Yeah.
You
God
said
bless
men.
you. Thank you. And hopefully one day I could possibly meet you and shake your hand and maybe come to one of your whatever I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. I would be glad to show up and endorse you because Lorelei has put it in my brain that you are the greatest. And hearing you communicate your passion about your Blackness is absolutely beautiful, young lady. And I love to do.
Thank you, Selwyn. I appreciate you very much. And again, my prayers are with you and your family and other families who have been impacted by this type of brutality. And as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, what affects us all directly affects us all indirectly. So thank you all. And to the sisters, thank you for this opportunity to join you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the fight that you are putting up. Thank you for supporting my campaign. And if anybody wants more information about my campaign, they can certainly go to ninaturner.com. The special election early vote starts on July the 7th, and election day in the primary is August the 3rd. So I would love people to join me, and thank you for your support. People have donated from all over the country into this campaign, and I just really appreciate the love of the movement.
Well,
We can
clearly,
keep it
to listen to you speak, it's obvious why you're so
Yeah.
qualified to be in our government. We need politicians like you who are down to earth, who are about the people and not about the games.
Yeah.
right.
Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Keep me in your prayers. I appreciate
We
you all.
shall.
We
Thank you.
Lovely day. We
Thank
love
you,
you.
my sisters.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.